Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make over some items and we're going to start with this pair of frames. And these are just plastic frames and the picture in them is kind of faded. So I'm just going to give this a coat of paint. And as it turns out, one coat covers it well. And I'm not going to worry with taping off that picture or taking it out. I'm just going to paint right over that because I'm going to be covering it anyway. So I didn't have the color Agave, which is a Waverly color, and I really like that, and that was the color that I wanted. So I just kind of mixed some colors together until I got pretty close to that color. And I couldn't tell you what I mixed because I just kind of mix until I get what I want, so I don't really measure. But you can get the color Agave, and it's pretty close to this color. And that white wax will seal this paint, and it will also settle down into all the crevices and add some more dimension to this piece. And it'll show up that detail a lot better than just leaving it the flat color. Now what I didn't intend on is for this wax to pull some of the color off, and it did. That happens a lot with wax. If you don't seal your paint after you paint it and before you put the white wax on, then you risk pulling some of that off. And generally I don't mind because that just kind of adds some distressing, which I wanted to add to this. But because this was kind of an antique gold underneath, I didn't want to this to distress a lot. Now what I could have done was to just white wax a small section first and then wipe that off. But because I pulled a little more than I wanted to pull off, I just decided to go with it. And I just added some gold gilding wax to it. And I just took my finger and rubbed some of that off. And I rubbed some of that on, rather. And just kind of gave this some gold highlights. And I really liked the look that I got. It wasn't intentional at all, but since it happened, then I could work with it. And I just decided to do that. So I didn't use a brush or anything. I just took my finger and rubbed that on and then wiped some of it off. And when I put that white wax on, or the gilding, I didn't worry with putting any on where the picture would be because I'm going to be doing some decoupage there. So now I'm just applying some Mod Podge. And I ran out of Mod Podge and just filled this up with glue, with Elmer's glue. So I'm not even using Mod Podge here, just straight Elmer's glue. And now I'm ripping up some old book pages and just kind of filling that in. So I just kind of keep piecing it until I get the whole area filled up. And I do that with both of these frames. I really like the look of book pages in the background of a picture, so that's just kind of an easy way to decoupage because you don't have to do any measuring. You just add little pieces until you get your area filled up. So once I get both of these filled in, then I'm ready for the next step. And we're going to be adding a flower to this, and we're just going to use strips of fabric to make that flower. And if you haven't seen me make these, then this one I'll be able to do a little closer up, so you can see how to make these more clearly. I do these a lot on videos, and I have a few that I've done more close up, but this will be one that I can add to that because I'm going to show you a really good close up. So now, because I want this flower to be more bulky, then one of the strips of fabric that I'm using, and I'm taking 3 together, by the way, because I want to give this some different texture. So I'm using one lace curtain shear that I've just ripped up, and then one is just some tea towel that I have coffee stained, and then one is the warm and natural fabric, and that's just almost like felt, but it comes in the batting section. I get it at Walmart, and I like to use that a lot, but like I said, I wanted to kind of bulk this up, so I wanted one piece that was thicker. So I'm going to start with, I just got a square paper here because it kind of helps if you've got something that you can use as your base. You don't have to have a base at all, but it kind of helps if you have something as a base. So I'm just taking those 3 pieces and kind of twisting them together. Now I'm doing this a little bit loosely, but I'm pushing it together really well in the center. And the reason I want to do that is because if you pull it too tight, then it's not going to have as much lift as I want in this one. So I'm just kind of twisting and gluing and twisting and gluing, and I'll twist one way for a little bit and then twist it the other way. It's just all about moving that fabric and getting it the way you like it. And some people twist one way the whole time, but I feel like when you twist both ways, it will give you a little bit more dimension. And sometimes I catch myself twisting the same direction. It's kind of hard to keep track of which way you've twisted, but if it works, it really doesn't matter. You can keep it all in the same direction, but sometimes it starts to look more twisted, and I guess it is twisted, so but I don't know, it just doesn't have as much of a flower look, I feel like, if you don't change directions every now and then. So you just keep building this until you get the size that you want. And I'm going to be adding a little bit to it, so this won't be as large as I intend for it to be. And if you run out of, if your square isn't as large as you want your flower, that's not a big deal. You just keep gluing it to the outer edge of your flower. And then you're going to cut all that excess away. And like I said, it's just a base for making your flower. Now you could definitely make your base completely round, and then you wouldn't have anything to cut off. Just make it the size that you want your flower, and then just keep twisting it until you get the whole piece of paper covered up, or cardboard, whatever you want to use. And this flower is going to be glued inside that frame, but not before I add some more lace to my flower. So I just cut this scalloped edge off of an old curtain shear, or an old lace curtain, and now I'm just going to glue that around the edge. And because we're going in a circle, you have to kind of bunch that up. You don't want to just lay it flat, or it won't, it just won't look right at all. So you just have to kind of squish it together. And I get a lot of questions about how I touch my glue so soon after I put it on. That didn't used to be the case at all, because I always used the high heat glue guns. But I found that you don't need the high heat glue guns. And this little glue gun, you can get them for like $5 or a little more maybe. And I always use these because I've even invested in a battery operated glue gun, but I burn myself every time because I'm just not patient enough to take the extra time to wait on it. So when I use this low temp glue gun, I don't have to. I'm able to handle it. And maybe part of it is because I've handled hot glue so much that maybe my hands are a little calloused. But I think it's simply because I have the low temp glue guns. As you can see there, that little scalloped part of the curtain really helps add some more dimension to this little flower. Now you could use a tiny doily behind this and not have to go through all that, but I don't like to have to buy the doilies for projects like this because I don't like to spend the money. And this works just fine. So I'm just gluing this to the center of the frame, and then that will be finished. So I'll do both of them like that. And I feel like this was a really simple, quick way to turn this little frame into a more updated piece of wall art. So now I'm going to work on my next one, and I'll kind of speed through that so you don't have to watch all that. So like I said, I just tie a knot in those 3 pieces, and you could definitely just use one thicker piece here, but I just wanted some extra dimension, so an extra texture rather. So I'm just twisting and gluing and twisting and gluing. These are the most simple flowers, and I feel like they look better than most of the homemade flowers that you can make. And I think that just about any kind of fabric will work. And obviously you can't rip a lot of fabrics, but you could use really any kind if you just cut it in strips. And then I always am on the lookout for curtain panels because you can buy them for next to nothing at garage sales and thrift stores. And like I said, you can cut the lace off that. You can cut strips of that and make your own lace ribbon, or you can, like I have here, just cut that scalloped edge off and use it for projects like this. You can do that with old clothes also. I'm really liking the shabby chic look of these little pieces of art. And the fact that they're plastic doesn't bother me at all because I've always had really good luck painting plastic. And now for the next item. My sister had brought me this because I know you guys have seen the can pockets, and so the idea here is to open the can on both the top and the bottom, and not all cans can be open with a can opener on the top and the bottom, so you have to make sure that it's one that will, and then you just squish that bottom together. Well, she already made this. I guess you take a hammer and just really squish that bottom together, and that's going to be the bottom of your pocket, obviously. Well, she had started this and I guess lost interest in it, and she just told me to finish it. So I decided, I've never made one of these, and like I said, I see them done all the time. So I've always wondered about it and thought about just kind of doing my own thing with one. And when she brought this in, I thought, yep, this is the time to just see what I can do with them. So I'm just going to add to this one. She has a good start to it here. She's painted it and put some decoupage paper on it. But I wanted to add more, so I just thought I would add some lace. Now this is a part of that curtain panel that I used on the last item. And I wanted to leave that scalloped edge on this one because I want that to be at the top here. So what I'm going to do is fold the bottom of this over, and I'll glue a small seam here. Actually, I glue a little larger seam than I wanted, and because I needed to take some of that length off, and then I'm going to cut the excess away because you'll see that somewhat through this lace. And then once I cut that excess away, then I'm just going to glue it right onto the can, starting at the bottom. So now I'm going through the process of deciding what to do as I go on this. I haven't figured it out. I just kind of figure it out as I go. Was going to glue that lace right on the can next, but then I decided that I wanted to drill some holes. So obviously you can't drill through this cloth because it will just bunch that cloth up and you'll have a mess. You'll ruin your fabric and it won't drill through it. So I pull this off at this point and start over and decide to add my holes first. So I just take a piece of board so that I don't drill through my table and put behind this, and then I can drill my holes. So I wanted larger holes, so I'm just kind of wallowing it a little bit as I drill. I would say that you could use a hammer and a large nail here, but I don't know if you could make your holes large enough doing that. I know that everyone doesn't have power tools, so I try to think of ways for those of you who don't have, but like I said, I guess you could do the large nails, but you would just kind of have to pull it out and then do it again in the same hole to kind of get the holes as large as you want. Because I struggle, even with the holes being this size, I struggle to get my fabric in there. And part of it, I guess, was because I put this lace on first. And I guess if I had this to do over, I would do this step after I did my next step, and that will make sense when I get there. But because I put this lace over, then I had to kind of try to get some of that fabric cut around or poke a hole in the fabric where those holes are. So it was kind of got in my way, and like I said, the next time, and I probably will be doing some more of these because they were fun. This one was fun to do, but I will do this step after my next step on the next one, because I have some carpal tunnel issues in one of my hands, and this really messed it up trying to get the next step finished. It just took a lot of pushing and pulling, and the next day I paid for it, but that's okay. It's already starting to feel better. So I just glued this on, and I said the next step was what I should have waited for, but I forgot that I do cut a piece of tea towel and glue it to the front of this can because I'm going to do a stamp on the front. So I just took the stamp that I wanted to add. I wanted to put some scripture on the front of this, and I just took a little piece of tea towel and cut a little rectangle the size of my stencil, or the size of my stamp. And I just kind of ripped that because I wanted those frayed edges. Well, when I put my stamp on there, I decided that I wanted my stamp to fit it exactly instead. So I had to cut some of that off. And when you don't leave yourself enough room to tear, you can't tear a really thin strip, so you just have to cut it. But that's okay because you can just take your fingernails and get some fraying on that edge also. So like I said, I'm just going to add that stamp and glue it right to the front of this can. Now all this was the easy part. I'm just using tacky glue here because I didn't want that hot glue bead showing through. But like I said, all this was the easy part, but the next part was really difficult because I had put that fabric on there first. So like I said, my tip is to, if you're going to make one like mine, do the next step before you add any of this fabric, and then you'll just be able to add this fabric right over the top. So I just ripped some fabric, and I ripped it very fine, or very thin rather. And then I took about 3 different types of this fabric. I did some lace, and then some thin shears, and then some tea towel. And I put about 3 pieces together, and I think maybe about 10 inches long, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then I folded a little bit of it over and twisted so that my pieces were together really good. So here I am taking my scissors, which is not the best tool for this, and trying to get through that fabric. So that was what was really hard. And then I'm just kind of threading this through, and I had to take a little screwdriver and just push that through. Now all this is where I really messed up my hand, and so I don't recommend doing it this way at all. That one went pretty well, but the rest not quite as easy. So I just tied a knot around that, and then I've got all that fabric just kind of dangling on the bottom. And like I said, I struggled with some of the others, so I'm just going to show you what it looked like when I did this all the way across the bottom. And once I get it all the way across, then I just kind of trim it all to where it's pretty close to the same length. And then that was the look that I was going for that bottom. And then I decided that I wanted something to hide my holes on the bottom. I don't think it looks bad, but I just felt like it would look better with something over that. So I just made enough of those small rosettes, just like I did the large one in the picture frames. And I just did enough small, and I just built them straight onto this. You could build them and then put them on, but I just built them straight onto it and covered each hole with one of the rosettes. And I made sure that I made them large enough that they were touching side by side. And then once I had this part done, I decided that I wanted to paint the inside of the can, because I just didn't like the look of that metal on the inside. So I just painted the inside of this in the color Buttercream, which is pretty close to what she had put on the outside, and pretty close to the color of my lace. And then I take some wide lace and make my hanger. And what I do is just tie a knot on the end, leaving about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, maybe a couple inches, hanging past the knot, if that makes sense, because I like to have a little bit hanging. I love to make hangers this way, and as long as you're gluing on cloth, then it holds really well. So like I said, I just tied that knot maybe 1.5 inches to 2 inches from the end, and then I just glue the knot directly onto the side of the can, and I just make my hanger the length that I want it, and then give myself room to tie another knot and just glue that on the side. And then I liked the little wispy piece of lace that she used on it that I had taken off before I did all this, and I wanted to find a way to use that on here because it had a really pretty antique look to it. So what I did was just cut that in half. That way I can glue each end to the front. I'm not going to worry with wrapping this around the back. I thought of doing that, but I didn't want to go over these handles. Now, another area where another time when I probably did things out of order, I could have done this step before I added my handle. But I'm just kind of gluing it on the side and kind of tucking it back under somewhat so that it has a finished end. But like I said, I just glue each piece to the side, and then I'm just going to tie a little knot in the center and then clip that off to where it just has a little bit of a tail. So like I said, I have two pieces essentially that I've glued to each side, and now I'm just tying them in the front, and then I'm just going to clip that off to where it's almost the size of a little bow, but it's not going to be a bow. It's just going to be kind of clipped off. And then I go back later and just glue a little piece of maybe a pearl, I think it was a pearl heart that I got off a little necklace. And then that one was complete. And then for the next item, I'm just going to do a little simple lamp makeover. So this was just a little lamp that was kind of a bronze color, and so I'm just going to make it more of a farmhouse style and just paint it. So I just give this 2 coats of the color buttercream. And because the lady, I'm doing this one for a friend of mine, and she wanted kind of an off-white, so I'm using buttercream. And like I said, just giving this 2 coats, and then I'll let that dry and take a wet cloth and water distress it, and just kind of rub on the high spots, and that's all that I'm going to do to this little lamp, and put a new shade on it. Like I said, this was just a very simple makeover. My friend had came in, and she had a lamp that she had been putting on books to make it taller, so this was a lamp that I had that was tall enough for her, so I just painted and distressed it and put the shade on it. And what I don't do on camera is I took a piece of lace and tied around the top and put a few little rosettes on it, and then that's all. And I made that where it was completely removable. It's just tied in the back, and the rosettes are glued onto the lace, so that if you wanted the shade just to be plain, you could just take that off. So this could be for a shabby chic style, or like I said, you could take that off, and then it would be just farmhouse style. So I really like that little lamp. I like how they all turned out. Now those little picture frames for me would have been more of an off-white color, because I just love neutrals. So I would love all that white together, but I know that many of you like color, and so I wanted to add some color in this little vignette. And if these don't sell, then it'll be really easy for me to just go over them with some lighter color. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.